This is a continuation of the lecture on kinship and marriage. Just a few slides here. So first of all, review from class. Consanguinal kin refers to kin related by blood. Affinal refers to kin related through marriage, so not related by blood. Fictive kin is people who are not related to you by blood, nor are they related to you by marriage, but they still take on roles that would be roles of kin. So you might have a fictive uncle or aunt who's just really a good friend of your mom or dad, but they treat you like a niece or nephew, and you treat them like an uncle or an aunt. And we see some good examples of this in Genghis Khan and the Making of the Modern World. We talked also about matrilineal and patrilineal descent, especially patrilineal descent, which is a lot more common. One sign of patrilineal descent is if children take the last name of their father. That would suggest a traditional patrilineal system. And the fact that a lot of Americans take the last name of their father and not their mother suggests that the U.S. is traditionally patrilineal, though it is changing and there is variation in that practice. This graph here relates to matrilocality and patrilocality. So this is different from lineality. Matrilocality and matrilineality are not one and the same. Locality has to do with where a couple lives after marriage. So in a matrilocal society, if a man or a woman get married, the man goes to live with his new wife's parents, or at least in her village or something like that. Much more common is patrilocality, where when a man and a woman get married, the woman goes to her husband's town, village, family, etc. And we see that in a lot of societies, and one example is in Maasai. We watched the Maasai Women movie and saw a bride leaving her own village to go to her husband's village. On this slide, I'm highlighting some different types of marriage, and some of this is a preview to the upcoming chapter, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and touch on it here. Let's talk about exogamous and endogamous forms of marriage. Exogamous marriage means that it's a custom to marry outside of your group. So you could have village exogamy, where you would marry someone who's not from your village, right? That would be the norm, that would be the rule in particular culture maybe, that it's not, it's really frowned upon to marry someone from your same village, and it's really encouraged to marry someone from a different village. You could also have something like clan exogamy. We're going to talk about this in relation to Hmong culture in a unit that's coming up. But that means that you may or may not know that Hmong people are organized into clans. And traditionally, you do not marry someone who's in the same clan as yourself. So clan exogamy is the marriage rule in that culture. Endogamy means there's a rule or a custom that you do marry within your clan, within your village, within your caste, etc. Right? So if it were the custom to have clan endogamy, that means you're supposed to marry someone from the same clan. Now the concepts of levirate and sororate. I have another slide on this, so we'll get to this. And then monogamy and polygamy. monogamous and polygamous marriages. We talked about this a little bit in class already, so we won't spend time here now. We talked mostly about polygyny. So that's the form of polygamy in which one man has multiple wives. Polyandry is much less common, but it is practiced in some cultures. So in Tibet, for example, there's a tradition, not universally practiced, but it's possible that a woman would have multiple husbands. When you hear that, right, if it seems very strange at first, you probably have some initial assumptions. Like one of my initial assumptions when I hear that would be that that means that women are in control in Tibet, or women have more status than men in Tibet, and that's why they might practice polyandry. And that's not necessarily the case. There could be a lot of different reasons for it. So one possible reason in Tibet is that if two brothers marry the same woman, so it's one wife and two husbands, and the two husbands are brothers, if they inherit farmland from their dad, the fact that they marry one wife enables them to keep all of that farmland together and farm it together, right? And instead of dividing it up into two different plots, which might not leave enough farmland for each of them. So there might be economic and pragmatic reasons for this as well. There might be many other reasons that I don't know about. Okay, so looking at marriage in Genghis Khan, one question to ask is, what are the functions that marriage serves in that society? And this is different across cultures and over time. So, so typically in the US, marriages, they tend to be quite romantic, right? And that's not always the case. We see a little romance in the story of Genghis Khan, but there are clearly other purposes that marriage serves for that society. Okay, this is just another slide on endogamy and exogamy, using the caste system as an example. In India, traditionally, among Hindus who are part of a caste system, traditionally you would practice caste endogamy. You marry people in your same caste, right? You might actually strive to marry someone in a higher caste than you to raise your own status and the status of your children, but that wouldn't always be possible. And then a little more on those concepts of levirate and sororate. Levirate is a practice, a custom, where when a man dies, his widow should marry his brother. So if he has a living brother, his widow should marry that brother. And that kind of makes sense in patrilineal societies. And I think this quote from the Bible, from the Old Testament, Book of Ruth, illustrates why. Boaz then said to the elders and to all the people, "You are witnesses today that I also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, as my wife, in order to raise up a family for her late husband on his estate, so that the name of the deceased may not perish from his people and his place." So if that's the husband's younger brother marrying the widow, the children of the marriage and of the deceased man would remain in that same patrilineage. They could remain in the same home. They could stay a part of that same family, right? In cultures where women and children are seen to some extent as wealth, right? The late husband's family might want to keep them for that reason. But for whatever reason, it provides some continuity. So that's one reason that this custom of levirate might exist in some cultures. Sororate is the reverse. If a woman passes away, her sister would marry the widower, right? And you can think about and analyze what some of the purposes of that type of custom might be. Okay, that's it. That's a quick presentation on some helpful kinship and marriage concepts. Thanks.